when I look at you being added to the team of Zinzino's product development and heading up that whole department, I'm more excited now about what's coming than I am about what we've got. And we've got some remarkable technologies. So, this kind of sketching out of who you really are and what you have, I think the important thing for me is I'm just grateful you're here, because you could be anywhere. But you're not, you're here. And we'll get to that question, but maybe lead us into, so how did you get to Zinzino? Because, okay, well, I had a second question. Let me pull them two together then. I'm sure that there have been many network marketing / multi-level / direct selling companies that have reached out to you in that career, wanting you to be involved. And I know that you would have said no to, all of them, but you're here. So maybe you can bridge that together and explain that process.
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, very kind words, but yeah, thanks. I've been really, given what I do, because I've been very, I've had quite a profile. So I've always been front and center. I've done a lot of talks, whether it's on radio, TV, seminars, conferences. So because I've been very front and center, and a lot of the feedback I always get is that, I kind of represent the data and the science quite well. It resonates with people, which is great, because that's what I aim to do. I aim to reduce barriers. I want to give people access to good information. And so because of that, and because of research projects I've worked on over the years, not just direct sales companies, not just MLM, but, big companies, and I mean big pharmaceutical companies, have approached me over the years and made me quite attractive. If you look at it purely from a financial point of view, they've made me offers to go and work with them within product teams, within innovation teams, just representing them. And I've never taken them because I never believed in what they do. Simple as that. Genuinely now, it's, I know it's a privilege to be able to say these kind of things, but there's more to life than money. And, selling your soul, it's like it's your one remaining. It's like it's the one asset you should never compromise. That's
Sure.
your biggest investment. And to sell my soul, I could never look a friend or my children in the eye again if I sold out to the man just for the check every month and I was telling people lies. I just couldn't do it. And so there were certain companies, I'm not going to name any because I don't want to get into any kind of libelous condition, but there were certain companies that I'm sure you would all know that, approached me and said, would you come on board? Would you do this? And one of them in particular, I'm not going to name them, but this is a good example of what you're sometimes dealing with. So one of them approached me and they said, we love what you do and we need someone like you. Would you come on board and tell everyone about how great our products are? And I'd heard of this company, but I'd never really spent any time looking at their products. So I said, well, could you send me through a product spec? Let me have a look at what you do. I need to understand it better. And so they sent me this through. The first draft they sent me wasn't great, didn't really tell me much. So I asked them, got in touch with a few people there. They sent me some better information based over in the States, but they're all over the world. And I read through and I got back on. I said, thanks for the offer. It's just not for me. I think when you look at where the evidence is at and where your products are at, there's quite a gap, and that's not for me. And I think, there's kind of information that you're putting out behind what you do that it lacks a bit of credibility, and I don't want to step into that space and start representing that. So, thanks, but no thanks. So then the person said to me, he said, what if we offered you more money? And at this point, Kirsten, that was it. I thought, right, game on. I was like, in my mind, I'm going, right, so you purely think this is about how much money you can shove at me to get me to go along and do this. So I was like, okay. I said, like, definitely. I said, if I'm going to be really honest with you, I think your products are terrible. Like, it's not just that I don't think they do what they do. I think they're awful. And they went, okay, so how much money are we talking? How much do you want to get? And I was like, wow. I was like, I think you're morally corrupt. I think your products are rubbish. I said, I think you're a part of the problem, not the solution. I don't want to get involved. And they went, we'll triple the offer. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't be any more offensive. So the phone went down. So that was one example, but that's an extreme. There are other companies who I certainly wouldn't cast in that same light. It just wasn't for me because I don't believe. I think what they're doing is kind of around the edges. I think it's stuff that's there and it's available, and okay, but it's like we can do things so much better. Like with a bit of effort, and I'm all for effort. I like effort on a daily basis. With a bit of effort and a bit of thought, we can just do things so much better, and we can do things well, and we can remain morally intact, and we can talk about things like, well, we want to grow businesses and we want people to be healthier and wealthier and happier, and I believe in all that. But I also believe we can do all that whilst genuinely approaching and tackling real world problems, and that not only the people who come on board from a business point of view, but the people who are customers who just engage with the practice get to live better lives, get to experience better health. And that's where I'm focused. That's what I want to achieve. That's what I've been aiming towards. And so, yeah, so I can sum up simply in simple terms. And remember, I thought Zinzino was going to be rubbish. Yeah, I'm happy to recount the story, how I heard about Zinzino in a moment.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, but I thought it was going to be rubbish. I just thought, yeah, here we go, another one. I thought I was going to tell my friend, within 5 minutes, don't worry about it, carry on with your life and be happy. Ignore all this. I've heard it all before. And I had the real stop the clock moment. It's early over here. It's 9 o'clock in the morning and it's Saturday, and I've been traveling all week. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee just to lubricate my voice. And then I'll tell you that story. And I know I can see Sue on here, and I know the Fitz is here. There's people who've heard this story before. So
we'll just wait in awkward silence. You take as many sips as you need.
Put the radio on for a second. All those people who've heard this story before. So we go back to lockdown 1, and I'm here in my study. And I always have to put this in context, because for 9.5 years, I'd been doing a commute into Manchester and back pretty much every day. And I'll be honest with you, it was starting to wear thin, because for me, it was a round trip each day of around 120, 140 miles per day. Wow. I was doing in the car, motorways, just there and back. And then so lockdown happened. And I kind of thought, this is great, because everything moved online. So I was doing student tutorials online. I was doing lectures online. I was having meetings online. I gravitated to Zoom like a fish to water. I was like, this is brilliant. But I was also working on a big project as a part of 2 health boards that I was working on. And that was about omega-3. And I've been asked to write a white paper, because everybody knew the problem. World Health Organization had already published statistics that said 6.2 billion people on the planet were getting insufficient amounts of omega-3. For that, I'm sure everybody on this call knows omega-3 is an essential fat. It's not a negotiable fat. It's not if you fancy it, it's essential. And we had this issue with it. And we also know that where people have a total fat percentage of less than 8% omega-3, then you start to see measurably increased risk of developing a non-communicable disease. So it's a real world problem. It's a real world problem that should have a really simple solution. Solution 1, which I know people like to jump on, and I used to be like this, they go, we should all just eat loads more fatty fish. That's what we should do. We don't need products, and we don't need supplements. We're all just going to eat fatty fish. Yeah, you're right. That should be the first solution. It's not ecologically achievable or sustainable or ethical, because there are 7.8 billion people on the planet. We'd have to give them all a fish each per day. So that's a tricky one. Secondly, in order for the fish to contain sufficient amount of nutrients to hit those totals, we're talking about we need fresh, wild, line-caught fatty fish. Imagine the industry around that, pulling out 7.8 billion of them a day to feed everyone. So the first option doesn't work. Second option should already exist. The fish oil industry. It's been there. I remember as a kid, my mum was from Dublin, pretty hardcore lady, forcing cod liver oil down your neck, whether you hated it or loved it. Like, there you go. The first sign of a sneeze or anything, cod liver oil. And there's nothing new. The cod liver oil industry has existed and functioned off a very simple premise, is that omega-3 is an essential fat. It's polyunsaturated fatty acids. They're essential. We need to have them. So that should be the solution. However, it's not. And we knew this already, but then in 2018, there was a Cochrane meta-analysis systematic review that looked at the best of the available evidence. And the conclusion of that paper was the fish oil industry, fish oil supplements don't work. They just don't work. So I'm here at home in this study, big computer on. You always know it's serious work when the big computer's on. And I'm writing up this report. And for the first time in my career, I'm about to write a conclusion that says, there's no obvious solution to this, and there is a certain amount of economic influence over this. So those people with more money, well, they can buy that fish. They can do that. It's hard to change behavior. We're not great around the world. You know, I've just been in Sweden all week. They're much better at it. So is Norway at eating fish. But around the world, we're not great at eating fish. We're not really. You know, we consume lots of it, but we don't consume lots of really good quality fatty fish. So I was about to write this conclusion and go, don't know where we go from. Where do we go from here? In fact, that was the title of the conclusion. Where do we go from here? And then the phone rang. And I always I have to framework this. Is like when I'm working away, particularly on research, writing up research, I ignore all distractions. But I was looking for a distraction because I was kind of having to write this thing that I didn't want to write. I had surveyed the research, the evidence. I'd looked at every type of practice, implication, was struggling as to where to go. And it was a friend of mine, Tony O'Neill, who at that time, I just saw Tony yesterday actually, at that time, he was really high up in an American clothing brand called Under Armour, which you've probably heard of. Under Armour, quite a well-known brand. And Tony and I have known each other. We go way, way back. And I'd done some work with Under Armour in the past. And Tony's had some health challenges in the past. He had a stroke a number of years ago, and he's the same age as me. He's a young guy, had a stroke, you know, that high executive life, taking its toll, stress. And so he's been really switched on to health things ever since. And somebody had said to him, so he says to me, he gets on the phone, he says, Col, how are you? What do you know about omega-3s? And have you ever heard of a company called Zinzino? And I said, well, funny enough, I know a fair bit about omega-3s, but no, I've never heard of Zin who. Zin what? Never. Who is it? Never, who are they? And I actually said to him, I said, but Tony, if you're going to tell me that it's a fish oil company and they've got a magic product, it won't work. It's rubbish. So, and he went, no. He said, will you have a look at it for me? He said, because he said, if you tell me it's rubbish, and I won't look at it again. He said, but someone I really trust has told me that it's an omega-3 supplement with a huge difference. And that there's this company's really, really interested in how they do things, what they're about. He said, so will you have a look at it for me? And he said, and also, he said, we're interested in direct sales as a business model. He said, you know, we're starting to consider this all the more. He said, so I'm interested in this company from a business model. And I was like, Tony, I know nothing about business, like zero about business. So I'll have a look at the omega-3, but when it comes to the business stuff, you're on your own. So I went off and I Googled Zinzino, and I genuinely, Kirsten, I thought this is going to take 3 minutes. But I also thought this is good because I've just surveyed all the world's biggest manufacturers, producers of fish oil supplements, and I've never heard of this one. So this is interesting. You know, I get to have a look. So I Googled it and I hit it and I saw this thing called balance oil. I thought that's provocative. Clicked on the link, and genuinely, I've told this story so many times, I had the eureka moment. And I had a moment where, and I'm not arrogant, I don't think I am, but I had a moment where I went, why didn't I think of this? Like, this is so, the genius part of this is so simple. Why didn't I think of it? For two reasons. One, you can change the world. And secondly, I'd be like so rich, it'd be untrue. But I was like, why didn't I think of this? And the obvious thing that I'm sure most people on this call know. And I know now who's behind it. It was a chap called Ola Ada, who's just phenomenally intelligent. He's just got one of those amazing minds. He's worked in the food industry his whole life with some huge companies. He simply went, fish oil industry separates the oil from the polyphenol. And in nature, wherever you find omega-3, it will be bound to and attached to a polyphenol. And so what they've done is that they'd brought the two back together. And I didn't need to read, and I know people will, and I treat that with respect. I didn't need to read, but it all cascaded into perfect sense. I was like, of course, the polyphenol acts as a chaperone. It protects the omega-3. So I'm, even before I read anything else, it's all making complete sense to me. But then there was a warning sign going off, and he said, like, do the test. And I was like, oh God, there we go. You know, it's snake oil, you know, do a test. Guess what? You're terrible. You're about to die. And then you take our product, and then you're amazing, and you can probably jump off rooftops. So this, you know, so I thought, this is a worrying sign. So I thought I'll have a look at this test. So I stopped looking at the product, and I thought, oh, who's the test? But straight away, now bear in mind, I'm the lab director for this huge laboratory, first of its kind in Europe, in Greater Manchester. And it says here, Vitas, Norway, do our tests. And I've tried to explain this so many different ways. Like, saying that Vitas does your tests is the equivalent of you saying that you play football and that you play for Brazil, you know, or, you know, Real Madrid, Liverpool. It's like, it's a huge claim and easy to check out, because, you know, you've put yourself in this like top status, this like tiny group. So I thought, well, this is easy, you know, because there's a part of me thought, you've either got to be really stupid or just telling the truth to do that. So I rung up Vitas and I said, I'm just doing some inquiries. I'm working on a research project. And there is a company called Zinzino, Scandinavian company, and they state on their website that you do their blood tests, independent analysis, DBS tests for omega-3 status. And the person on the phone said, yes, we do. We independently analyze and all of their samples. They're one of our best customers. So I just put the phone down. I was like, right, thanks, yeah. I thought, wow, this is really interesting. Vitas is like incredible. You know, it's reputation. They work with Harvard, Stanford, the NHS, Oxford, Cambridge. Like, their reputation, the research they've produced it's almost second to none. So I rung Tony back. Remember Tony? I rung Tony back. I said, this is going to take me a bit longer. This is really, really interesting. I need to spend more time on this because this looks fascinating to me. And so I did. I started to look, and I looked at the product more. I looked at the claims around the product. I looked at the test, and I really started to go, well, I tell you what I did. We have to go back a little bit. In 2019, I was at a conference in America, and there was some big hitters there from food manufacturer, from food science, tech, research. And I said, on stage in front of, it's probably about 3,500 people, I said, given where we're at in the world with 21st century food technology, science and understanding, why hasn't a company stepped forward and said, let's use all that and do 21st century supplementation better? Let's make really good products that genuinely enhance a person's life, rather than always focusing on what's the most profit I can make for the smallest investment. Why doesn't anybody just go, you know what, it'd be great just to do things really well? And so I was looking at all this, and my words were echoing back, and I was like, here they are. I don't know anything about this company, but if you judge them purely off what they're doing, this is the approach they've taken. They are taking a very moral informed, leading approach towards creating food supplementation that will measurably make a difference. So I was fascinated, but still cynical. You know, I'm a scientist. That's our default. So I thought they're bound to have a multivitamin. And let me take you back again. Nutrition 101, my first year as an undergrad. And we had this phenomenal nutrition lecturer. And he said to us in the first lecture, 99% of multivitamins just create expensive pee. That's all they do. Expensive urine. That's all they do. That's all they make. And we talked about how they have insufficient amounts of what you actually need on a daily basis, how they don't look at how the formulation works together in a compatibility point of view, whether or not you get a synergistic outcome. They looked at types of ingredients. So I've always like been fascinated with the multivit. So I thought, right, I'm going to catch these Zinzino people out. They'll have a multivitamin and it'll be rubbish. You know, I needed something. I needed something. And I had a look through the website, and they've got a product called Extend. I thought, great. And I looked at that, and that was where I just like threw the pen down and went, they've even created an amazing multivitamin. So that was the point that, yeah, I got back on the phone to Tony. I said, Tony, take the product. Definitely. Finally, there's something that we can get behind and say, this will change your omega-3 status for sure. Take the product. And then I started to get phone calls, Kirsten, of people like you who said, Dr. Col, would you mind just joining us on a call and just explain the science to these good people? And I joined a few of them. And the reason why I did that, I wasn't getting paid, wasn't on the books. It was nothing like that. It was because I was excited, because for the first time in my entire career, and I've been working in this space now for 28 years, for the first time in my entire career, I didn't have to just say to people, you should take omega-3, or you should take protein, or, you should increase your vitamin D. I could say to people, take this. This is the one I want you to take. It was the first time in my entire career that I was confident and I was happy to name a brand and go, no, don't take that one. Take this. Take Zinzino's Balance Oil. That's the one I want you to take. And as people will have heard, it had a profound impact personally within my house, people in my family, and certainly in the groups that I was working with, the populations I was working with, both athletic and from a health point of view. I don't like to share anecdotal tales, but account after account after account of seeing the change that I would expect to see when somebody gets their omega-3 status addressed. So that's all that bit, really. That's all that bit. On that point, I'm going to take another sip of this.
Well, let me jump back a couple of steps, because we have a similar genesis with Zinzino. So I was battling. I went to a big convention that I spoke at. There were a couple of thousand people on stage, and I couldn't remember the word recession. And this was part of my talk, and it was frustrating. I got back home. I said, Sam, something's wrong. From my friend who's a neurologist, I said, I think I've got a tumor. This is the first time in my life I've never forgotten a word before. I went to go see her. She just laughed and said, you're getting old. It's just, what omega are you taking? And at that point, I'm consuming 9,000 milligrams of one of the cleanest and purest omegas on the planet at the time. I've got 3 different blends that I'm using because I'm just trying to get the best possible benefit. And so I did what every non-academic does, is I posted on Facebook, anybody got a solution for omega? And my good friend in the UK, Dave Ives, said, yeah, I've got something. I'll send you some from the UK. But he said to me, but don't waste my time. If you're not going to do the test, don't take the oil. So I really didn't understand. Stuff arrived and we looked at it. I quickly realized there was a business attached to it. I mean, I've known Dave for a long time. So obviously he was involved with Zinzino from a business building perspective. And I thought to myself, my first experience was exactly what you had, which is, this is amazing. This is really brilliant, until I saw the test and I said to Sam, I've got it. This is how it works. So you do the first test, you get really bad results. You do the second test, you get good results. And now you've got this proven methodology. So I said to watch, we'll trick the system. I'll mark that I've been using Balance Oil for 120 days and you mark you haven't. And I bet you my results will be better than yours. Now, at this point, we're both exercising pretty much the same. We're both eating the same. Sam's nutritionally trained, so we're supplementing the same. We're living the same kind of lifestyle. And we send off our results, get them back, and I'm 2 points worse than what she is. And at that point, I had this, it's the same thing. It was this instantaneous aha moment where nothing else actually mattered from that point, because I realized right then and then, once the test independently and anonymously was verifiable and just bulletproof from an authenticity perspective, I looked at this and I said to Sam, we're going to do something significant on the planet. And I love that you brought that in, that you posed the question that you asked, how do we change the world? And we looked at the same thing. And having been in direct selling now for about 20 years, we've made good money. We've done good things. We've built good teams. We've been involved with really good products, but we haven't really had that thing that's enabled us to truly impact the world in a dramatic way. And so that's extraordinary. You know, I love these little golden threads, because the more people I connect with, the more people I see had similar thought processes. Guys coming from different facets, different ways of doing things. But Cole, let's take a little bit of a segue here.
Before we do, because I don't share this part of the story a lot, but what you just said inspired me to. So bear in mind, I'm the lab director of this huge laboratories in Greater Manchester, and we've got a whole biomedical lab. So I thought, right, I'm going to test the test. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the test, and I'm going to test myself at the exact same time on the exact same day. I'm going to send one to VITAS, and I'm going to put one through our own analysis, and let's see the difference. So if my analysis on our millions of pounds worth of kit through our assay tells me one version, and then I get a radically different one from another one, well, that's going to give me some insight on what it's about. And there was 0.0003 of a difference in those two assays.
Wow.
So what we're saying is that the difference between the two is probably down to how I smudge my finger versus any content of the blood. So they both told me pretty much the exact same baseline analysis. And when I did my retest, I did the same. And at that point, they both gave me the exact same figure. So I was in a unique, but not everyone's got 30 million pounds worth of laboratories at their disposal. I was in a unique position where I could actually just test it via the same mechanism. So yeah, absolutely, yeah, fascinating. So anyway, sorry, carry on.
I love it. No, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing. Okay, so let's, obviously there is a business, aspect to Zinzino. So we've got what I believe is best in practice and best in industry technologies. And I do refer to them as technologies. I think just supplementation is such a simple term, because we're so much more technologically advanced than the large majority of what we see out there in the supplements industry. I love the concept. When we looked at Zinzino, one of the things that really stuck out for us was that Kaizen understanding of continual development, continual movement. I know that's something that you're passionate about as well, but I've noticed the change in impetus with you coming on board. So I've seen things shift and move from a product development perspective. And not that Zinzino was ever lacking in that, which is the interesting thing, but it's kind of like, we've been driving in fourth gear, and all of a sudden we found, wait a second, we can shift into fifth now. And, there's so much more speed being gained, so much more momentum. What is your, as we stand now, let's take a look at the next 5 to 10 years as Zinzino. And obviously we don't have to get into specifics. I know there's product launches coming up at Leadership School. If you're not coming to Leadership School, you're going to miss out on seeing this live. You want to be there. Still time to buy a ticket, just letting you know. But what is your kind of your vision cost as the CPO for Zinzino over the next 10 years? What is your goal here?
So that's a great question. Thanks for that. It's first of all, when I came into Zinzino and the product team, it was in great shape. So it's such a privilege, because you've got incredible people. They had Ida Marie Pedersen, who'd been there for a couple of years. She'd worked at Found, which is the factory that produces a lot of the products. Her background, she's an Olympically accredited nutritionist, but she's got a real background of hands-on making the formulations happen. So working at that level. They'd recruited already, just after me, they brought in Dr. Emily Gislevic, who is a omega specialist from University of Gothenburg. And we had also Sebastian Johnson, who come in as a product manager. So outside of that, you've got this amazing scientific advisory group, which has got Professor Angela Rizzo in it. Paul Clayton is in that group. Dr. Abraham Antharhaj, we've got Thomas Gunderson makes a contribution, Ola Aid. We've got so many great people around the product team and the product group informing and shaping what they do. So when Henrik unfortunately had to move sideways, and Henrik was a great leader of the group, and I kind of took the helm, we were in a great position. We were starting from a winning position, and I'm eternally grateful. But what the reason they brought me in to begin with as a scientific research specialist was start to really, on a daily basis, really solidify that notion of what's happening within the research evidence and how that can be transformed into health concepts and areas we can work within, and how that shapes up into products that better enables people's lives and create more substantially measurable health, like meaningful health outcomes. And that comes from the top. I have to reassure everyone that, Dag, the CEO, and Orion and Hilda, the founders, have such a kind of close relationship to everything that happens at Zinzino, and their values like reach all the way through. They create the culture, and this notion of really the bigger scheme, which is changing global health. Whether or not I felt that personally before or not, that was already saturated across Zinzino, because that's what they want to achieve. That's their target. And so they're looking for like-minded people. So for me and Zinzino, it was an easy fit because our values were the same. That's what we're focused on. And so coming in now as a CPO, what I've been unleashed to do by those people and by the team around me is to really drive that forward more. And I like that analogy of the gear shift change, because I think that's all we've done. I think we've just sped up. I think it was what we intended to do. And I think what we've done in the time since is just really move more confidently towards that. And the reason why concepts and themes are so important in health is because, and you'll get this a lot, I'm sure there's probably questions in the chat now, people will talk about a health scenario. They'll say, well, will balance oil help me with this? And they'll talk about a recognized condition. And the reason why I try and get people on board with concepts and themes more is because it's very rare. In fact, it would be to the case of being unique that the situation you're dealing with is isolated. What happens is we have this health domino effect, and we have what we call gateway diseases. And it starts with the things that people just dismiss. If you have a look at the top 15 associations of nutritional deficit that's written across the World Health Organization, you will see that joint pain, general pain, these kind of low-level conditions, mental health concerns, depression, they feature in that top list. Number one, you've got all-case mortality. And before you even get to number 12, 13, 14, you're talking about these lower level signs and symptoms. And I think that that's what we've normalized in the world. We've normalized those things, and we just give people, we pop them a pill and we say, there you go, take this and you'll be okay. You'll cope with it for another day. And so for us, when we look at a health approach through our pharmaconutrition, and when we look at what we can do to really reset your compass, so you're starting to make, more meaningful change, it's those concepts and those broader themes. And we start to think less of the medical model, which is take this to help that, and more of the nutritional, the biological model, which is that when you work on these components and you work on making a 1% improvement in 100 areas rather than 100% in one area, then what happens is your overall health and wellness is increased across multiple areas, and you reduce risk. So I'd say for us, I agree, technologies is a huge part of where we're going to move forward, how we can better test for things that matter. I know there are companies out there now, God, it makes me laugh. Some of the things they claim they can test for, and you go, really? And when you have conversations with them, you go, right, talk me through that. How is it you're testing for that? Given that it's purely a homeostatic measurement, and there's variation within the hour, never mind the week, but we don't do that. So we hone down on tests that have a really high validity, reliability, and test, retest outcome, like relationship. Also, does it matter? Like, if you know this, does it matter to your health? Can you act on it? Can you do something? And also, we don't just want to be a company that says, right, test this, take that, test this, take. What we want to do is we want to be a company that says, the better you understand yourself, the more empowered you are to make positive choices. And we're going to help you with those as well. So we're not just going to give you a lotion or a potion or a pill. We're going to give you advice and guidance and support on how you can work on all those other huge. And what I can say is that, it's exciting for me because it's a project I've worked on really since I've joined Zinzino.
Just see you back, Doc.
I'm back. And just to add to that, like, there's a reason, and then I'll finish my other statement. One of the main reasons we don't talk about individual conditions is that we would need to know so much. So when I was working clinically, big district general hospital, a one-to-one with the patient, whereby before I met them, I would inherit a bunch of notes like this, their medical background, past medical history, and I could check what medications they were on, any other kind of contraindications, comorbidities. I could look at all this, and then I'd still spend 45 minutes with them, finding out where they were at, what was going on. And that would be the start of a process. So when we try to have 5 minutes of questions and someone asks about disease, it's kind of like, if I gave you an answer, I'd probably be misleading you. And it's important that we don't do that. Sometimes a little bit of knowledge can be a dangerous thing. However, I'm going to finish my other statement. I don't know why. Obviously, the Zinzino gods are watching and thought I was about to give away the secret before Friday and then just kicked it out of the Zoom. But yeah, I'm dead excited about what we're going to release next week because it's very concept driven. It's huge. It's the start of something that's even bigger. And already the difference between what we've done and what anyone else does. And I genuinely now, we are going to make more information, guidance and support available to people in a certain area than even any other health board in the world provides. And you can quote me on that. You can challenge me on that. That's the truth. That's what we're about to release in a week's time. So yeah, it's exciting. It's a privileged place to be.
Fantastic. So I mean, Cole, so obviously I know what it is. And we're not going to have that call where it jumps out. Yeah, apparently I do. I've been privy to.
Let me just get on to the people at the top. Get around to.
But I mean, this is going to be. It is. I don't want to use the word quantum leap, but I mean, this really does push us in a new direction in such a dramatic way. So not only do I see our net widening from a business building perspective, now we've got so much more people that we can impact. But we're really increasing the ability for us to be able to impact people's lives in a dramatic way. Now, you've mentioned culture a couple of times today, as have I. And I think this is one of the things that's ingrained in who we are. And I think it's something that each and every person, corporately, the partners, need to make sure we defend vehemently. Because if we keep that culture of results and effectivity in people over profitability, if we keep the culture of impacting people in a sustainable way, the culture of producing products that actually do work in people and are not just there to fill a niche that's trendy, that generates profit, what happens is that does separate the company and put them in a different realm. And when we look at and evaluate businesses, my evaluatory process is always to figure out, how do I get involved with one of those 1% companies? So in every industry, there's terrible and bad and mediocre and good and great companies. But there are those rare, extraordinary companies that are like Apple. It doesn't matter how good Samsung is or how much they bring to market, people will still queue up to get the new Apple iPhone for a couple of days before it's launched. There's something about it. It's the culture. It's so much bigger than just the tech that they produce. And when I look at Zinzino, I think that we are the most underperforming extraordinary company in our industry. My prediction is that when we've kind of bridged that stage of the trendsetters and the early adopters, this will be something that'll catapult in such a dramatic way. But I do believe that it comes from confidence. As a partner, having built business for so long, what I intend to do with people is I intend to really teach them to have confidence in the model that they're involved with, the company they're involved with, the methodology of creating income in direct selling. I think for a lot of people, they face the question that you may have asked. Well, what makes this different? What makes this unique? What makes this the right decision for me? And if you're chatting to now, which you are, a group, we've got just under 90 people on the call today, and this will be watched over and over. What is that thought process for you that you wish every single Zinzino partner knew and had as knowledge that they could share with people? around the technology offering that we have? What is, and I know that's a very broad question and we can get into a lot of detail, but one of the things that I love about the way you communicate is you take extremely complex ideas and you distill them down into something that anybody can understand and recommunicate. Which is fantastic. So, what would be, if you had to pick a couple of things that you wish people were communicating more effectively as they were chatting to people about the technologies?
I mean, I feel like that's a huge question, but I understand where you're coming from. I mean, from a Zinzino product point of view, if we look at the flagship product, and it always will be, which is the balanced oil, which is our omega-3 solution. When you look at that, and I kind of had the opportunity of coming in and looking at this brand new because I wasn't a part of the initial development of that formulation. When you look at that and you compare what else is out there, and even though there are people trying to copy it now, but when you look at what else is out there, is first of all, we know signed, sealed, delivered, fish oil doesn't work. So the fish oil industry, the average supplement that a person has taken, which is a huge industry, there's plenty of people taking them, it doesn't work. It makes no difference. So there's a lot of people who are already taking a product because they recognize the importance of taking it. What they don't realize is what they're taking is failing them. That's where the test speaks for itself. So what I wish everybody knew is, and we live in this time, this age, where people often say, don't question the science. It's the science. First of all, you should always question the science. That's what science does. That's how science functions, is by questioning itself and challenging things. But what we have is we have a very powerful, verified scientific measurement tool that for those people will tell them, what does your current practice do? How does it benefit you? And then if they're committed and they know that they're happy with this product, and you go, right, well, let's test it. Let's see what effect it's having. Upon finding out the truth, and for 97% of the people, they find out that they're insufficiently catered for, then you're in a different position. It's like, well, do you want to try a solution that is known to work? Do you want to know? And the reason why that solution works is really simple, and I'm going to whittle it down to 3 parts to you. There is not a medical doctor in the world that does not recommend that their patients, no matter what age, take a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil every single day because of its well-known, well-established anti-inflammatory properties. We know that. It's nailed on. We want everyone in the world just to do that. It's a best step measure to take. That's where the product begins. You have a high, extremely high phytonutrient extra virgin olive oil that is the base, the body for this product. Secondly, what you have in there then is a fish oil, or we have a vegan one. I always try to remind people we have a vegan option, but we have a vegan and we have a fish oil option, which is certified Friends of the Sea. It's the most ethically, sustainably fished fish oil in the world. It works to our own ratio of DHA to EPA because we know the functionality of it and how it works best. So we provide you with an omega-3 solution at the right dosage amount per day based on your own body weight. So it's not a case of, I weigh 78 kilograms, and I'm sure there'll be people on this call who weigh 80 and 50 kilograms and 90 kilograms. When you look at the standard practice, they go, take 2 of these. Well, so I take 2 and she takes 2 and he takes 2 and that child there takes 2. So we all just take 2, and that's how it works. Ours is there's a lot of work gone into it, looking at the specific dosages per kilogram of your own mass, 0.15 mil. So we have a very specific dosaging that works within that product. And then the third component, and by the way, if your doctor isn't switched on to the omega-3 need, please just say to them, could you take 30 seconds to go and have a look at the World Health Organization and go and have a look at the 6.2 billion people suggested deficit, and that when people are less than 8% total fat omega-3, you get an increased risk of non-communicable disease. Can you just spend 30 seconds looking there, and then we can get back on the conversation about omega-3. And then the final part of the product that I draw your attention to, which everyone switched on to 2 years ago, even though I've been trying to get everyone to switch on to it for 20 years, is it contains vitamin D. So within one measure, most people, an easy habit to pick up, you're going to take your teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil and be packed full of those anti-inflammatory antioxidants. You're going to have your daily amount of required omega-3 in a hit, and you're going to have a hit of vitamin D, and you're good to go. That's what I wish people knew, is that what we have is, first of all, a way for you to find out how you're getting on and whether or not you need it. And secondly, we have a proven, workable, easy to consume solution. That's just the flagship product. That's just the flagship product. This is I don't often share anecdotes, and I'm only going to tell you this because it happened yesterday. So there's a good friend of mine who was really senior in the local Merseyside police, really senior. He retired in January. Fitness fanatic, done lots of triathlons, Ironman events, cycling, exercises, trains every single day. And probably around about October last year, I got him onto balance oil. And he's a policeman. They don't trust anything ever. Anyone. It's like it's in them. Everyone's guilty. And he was like, "Really? What's all this? What is it?" I was like, "Listen, just do the test. See how you're getting on." So he took the test, and he was really, he was way out. He was like 17-1, and then started to take it. And he was already taking a fish oil supplement. It was one of those scenarios. So he moved to balance oil, and then he didn't really mention it. He said, "Yeah, I'm taking it, okay," and all the rest of it. Yesterday we met up for a coffee, and he lives in the next village down from me, and we're having a coffee. And he went, "Oh, by the way, I've just ran out of balance oil. You haven't got one you could loan me till I order some more, could you?" I was like, "Why don't you just subscribe?" And he said, "Well, if you haven't got a bottle, you could just let me have." He said, "Because I noticed it a couple of days after I stopped taking it." He goes, "And then you're going to hate me now." He said, "I went to the chemist and I bought some standard stuff, and there's no difference whatsoever." He said, "So if you can just give me a bottle, and then I can get some delivered in the post." So it fascinates me, because there was someone who was a lifelong nailed on, taking a different product, skeptical, wasn't sure what it was all about, did the test, quietly went about getting it. But then when he runs out and he's put a lag in his order time, I'm sure he'll subscribe now, was, coming out going, "Oh, can you give me a bottle?" So the difference in the impact of what it makes when you get into the flow of it is a unique and individual experience. And I encourage everyone, it's not about 120 days to fix it. It's 120 days for you to change it. It's the rest of your life to keep it in the best shape it can possibly be.
I love that. I think, when we come across people, there is this absolutist way of thinking. It's either all or nothing. So if I take balance oil, will it cure, fix, treat, mediate all of my illnesses, ailments, diseases? If I take this multivitamin, will it deal with everything that I'm battling with? And often what happens is, out of exuberance, people say yes without that understanding. So we get to resolve the issue, but then we've got the rest of our lives to make sure that we're giving our bodies what it needs. And I that's one of the things that I think we do need to communicate more is, it's amazing what happens in 120 days, but can you imagine what will happen in 2 years or 5 years of consistently giving your body the short, or the stopgap of the nutritional deficiency that it has experienced for most of us for the large majority of our lives? I mean, we're, similar era, born into convenience foods, all those kinds of things. And for the first time, our bodies are in a point where they can thrive. And Carl, I think that's the exciting part of what we've got. And Zinzino is, I really feel like we've just started the journey. I don't think this is going to be a sprint by any stretch of the imagination. I hate to use that analogy. Sprints are lots of energy, but they're over really quickly, and there's a good time of recovery that needs to happen in between. I really do see, and you can probably attest to this. This is an endurance company. This is a company that's got legs to run and see things moving. And I'm excited about the next 5 and 10 years, because I believe that as we look back over that 10-year journey, and we've gone from the 200,000 to 400,000 to 1 million customers, that's going to be an exciting kind of pin to pop. But what that does is the knock-on effect of the different products that are coming out of the pipeline, testing, all these kinds of things that are that are moving, what we're building is just a more well-rounded company. And, we don't just want to work on legs. We want to make sure arms and shoulders in the company are functioning and brain is working well. We can see, and we're, there's just such a great confidence. And for me, now, this is a big part of it, is you coming on board, I think has really added, like I said at the beginning, just such a different aspect to it, but it's strengthened a component that was great, but is just now better than what it was. We're at the end of our time that we've allotted for this call, and I always like to leave with thoughts from the person speaking. I appreciate you sharing, what the partner should really feel from a point of confidence. I hope everyone that's watching has listened to this and just got the context of who Dr. Robertson is, and that should give you a great deal of confidence when you're going out there, that if somebody like this decides to partner with this company, that should give you a whole lot more confidence and posture in your ability to be able to communicate what we have. But Cole, to wrap up, I'm excited to see you at Leader School in a couple of days. That's going to be great. I hear that we're taking Dog for a run in the mountains. That's going to be fantastic too on Wednesday. But what would you, closing thoughts for the call? We're standing on a precipice. I believe this is the starting point for Zinzino. I know you would believe a similar thing. We've had a great 15 years to get us to this point. But what would you close this call with? Whatever is kind of on your mind or on your heart, you shoot.
For me, I think about this. It probably comes as no surprise, but I think about this a lot. I think about the way certain things are moving and shifting in the world, what problems we face, and I drill down and I focus on health matters. That's my area. I know there's a ton of other stuff going on in the world. Of course I do. I'm not ignorant of that, but my area, the bit I work on, is the health component and how we can get people to live better lives, because life is rare. It's really rare. When we look into the furthest depths of space we can reach, so far, the only intelligent life that's like this is what we can see on the planet. There is very few of us. It seems like there's a lot, feels busy at times, but this is it. And to me, without wanting to sound all whimsical, every single life does matter. And the experience that a person has of the world is directly correlated to their health and physical well-being. And what happens is that when you start to change health parameters, when a person can think more constructively and creatively, when a person can engage more physically and meaningfully in the world around them on a daily basis, well, that starts to spread. And we reset the new common, which reshapes the new normal. And through those things, I think that what we're going to lead to are societies that are working genuinely. I think we have a lot of poor political and social decision making in the world, which is a manifest outcome of how many people we've got who are in a poor health condition. And I believe that when we change this from a societal point of view, then we're going to see bigger changes that also uplift the societies and communities we live in. And so for what we do, remember this. There's a saying, and I challenge this a lot: you are what you eat. That's partly true. You are what you absorb. That's the key part to it. And if we can just start to, one by one, cell by cell, human by human, start to flick that switch and start to work with someone in your family, and you go, this really works for me, and now it works for you. There's a multiplier, 100% improvement. We've gone from 1 to 2. If we all took that approach and we all brought about a fundamental shift in health status through better nutrition, we will literally reshape the world around us. And that, to me, which sounds kind of whimsical, it sounds a little bit kind of pretentious, but that's the reality of the kind of mission that we're on, which is to improve things. Because I struggle being happy when people around me aren't happy. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. And I think what we can do is little by little, without asking people to become a fanatic, change their whole life, suddenly run a marathon every day and only drink water that's been filtered off the back of leaves in the Amazon, and all that crazy guru stuff. We all see the Instagrammers. No. Let's work on the smallest meaningful change we can address on a daily basis. Can I do one thing a little bit better today? Balance oil is one little thing better you can do each day. Taking a supplement that eliminates the challenges there are nutritionally out there and empowers you to be better. that's a meaningful, positive change you can make. I'm going to finish on this because this has been a rock and roll ride for me. I've been with Zinzino nearly 2 years, I guess, heading towards it. And when you function in that world, it becomes contagious and addictive, because anyone who's been in there for more than 2 months, they're one of these people that they irritate a lot of other people because they start to be relentlessly optimistic, full of energy, like to have a good time, feel positively and enthusiastic about the world. And I like it. And if that's a cult, I'm in.
Dr. Cole, thank you so much for joining us. I don't have to